All right, ladies and gentlemen. So just building off of what we did yesterday is I showed you how to once again use the dodge and burn tools to shade the spheres that we've created. Now, in this exercise, we had the original picture, which sort of shows us a sphere, a round form with some lighting on it. And that lighting is coming from this top sort of left direction and coming down diagonally. You know that because the shadow is cast bottom right. So the light is coming in from this way. The area that hits the light directly, facing it directly, is a little bit brighter. As you roll away from this side that's sort of looking away from the light, it gets darker and darker. So that creates that effect of lighting, and that was what we were trying to emulate to a certain degree in the first exercise by using the dodge tool to make things lighter and the burn tool to make things darker. Now, I know I posted a video yesterday that was called, Mr. B, I'm having trouble with the burn and dodge tool. I posted a quiz, and you guys, to your credit, were extremely honest. Many of you did not watch the video, and you were truthful in your response. As great as your honesty is, and as much as I enjoy it, and I'm not obviously, taking that quiz too seriously, I do want all of you to watch that video. Knowing how to adjust in the dodge tool your options right here in the range from midtones to highlights to shadows, it's important to know that you can do that and use that, because when you're working on your character later on, you may have had no problem doing this with the colors that you chose, but you might have trouble doing that later on. So when you're like, hey, Mr. B, you're not around and I'm just watching videos, I don't know what's wrong with burn and dodge tool and I can't fix things. Well, please take 5 minutes and watch that video, the troubleshooting video that some of you watched the other day. Now, what we're going to do is we want to think about shading, because what we're going to do is we're going to shade our actual cartoon characters, the ones that we've already colored. Now, there's a couple ways to think about shading. One is to think about, where is there a light source? And in this case, there's a light source coming from a particular angle. You can choose that angle. It doesn't have to come from the top left. It can come from the bottom. It can come from the side, but it's a sort of consistent. This side is a lighter side. The opposite of it is darker. Now, this sphere that we did, the last ball 2, we shaded it a little differently. We shaded the middle of it light and the outside edges dark. Now, this is not working with a light source. This is working with the idea, and this idea has been around since the Renaissance, that if something is light in color and you hold it up against a darker tone, the light tends to look like it's a little bit closer to us, and for whatever reason, our brain reads the dark as further away. So the effect we should have gotten here is the idea that the center of this is popping out. So where it's popping out towards us, like someone's belly, like for example, my belly, we're going to make it lighter. As we go on to the edges that go back into space, they're going to get a little bit darker. So in one exercise, we use the idea of light hitting an object and making that side light, other side dark, like you would think of almost like a crescent moon. And this one we did with the idea that the center that pops out at us is light and the outside edge is dark. If we reverse that and made the middle dark and the outside edges light, it would be almost like we're looking into like a salad bowl or a dinner plate that's getting deeper and deeper in the middle and closer to us on the outside edges. Why is that important? Because we're going to go and use those ideas of how to shade to sort of add some lights and darks to our character. Now, I'm going to cheat ahead really quick and show you what we're working towards. This is my character, a different version of him that I did do the burning and dodging tools. So you can see where I've kind of created some lights and darks to really make my character pop off the page. Really looks a little bit more menacing and masculine and everything else like that. If I switch from this one back to the other one, you can notice this is much more flat without the burning and dodging. So we spent the time learning how to use the tools to use them, and we're going to use them on our characters that we created before. Now, in creating our characters before, remember that I told you to put different colors on a different layer. That's going to be helpful now when we're working too. So you can see that I have my scrubs, they're all one color, that's my clothing. I can make that disappear really quick by clicking the eyeball. That's all on one layer. The gloves are on another layer. The skin is on another layer. The mask. This is important because when you're burning and dodging, I might want to burn the shirt a lot and dodge some places. But if I go over the edges of, let's say, my face, I'll kind of mess up the shading there. So we want to make sure we're working on different layers. And most of you who have submitted this already have done that. I'm just going to start with my scrubs, and I'm going to switch over to my dodge tool. And when I get my dodge tool, I certainly don't want to go after it with the tiny little brush. I kind of want to go up to my adjustments, and this is the part of it that's really going to be the art. You're going to have to decide what you want to use. Now, what I would tell you is the brush should sort of fit what you're doing. You know, if you're working on a medium-sized area, in this case, I'm working on the shoulder, well, I should have a medium-sized kind of brush. I shouldn't do this with a super tiny one, nor should I try to do it with a gigantic one. Use common sense, all right? So in this case, I've decided to make my brush like almost a big chunk of this body part. And if I'm dodging on 100%, you're going to find that some of that dodging doesn't look so great. Do you see how when I'm dodging at 100%, you can see almost like a little trail of circles going around? I don't want that. All right, what I do want is I want a nice soft blended look, and that's going to be by taking my hardness and putting it down to 0. So what I'm going to do really in this picture right over here is I'm going to think about that idea that light is coming from that top left side. I don't have to do that. I can do it a different sort of way, but in this case, that light's coming from that side. I'm going to look at, it would hit the shoulder here first and make that lighter. Over here, the trapezius neck muscles, you know, that would be hit with light, so I'm going to make that part a little bit lighter, obviously. The more you go over it with a dodge tool, just like we did in the practice, the lighter it will get. I kind of know a little bit more about anatomy than you guys do, but I do know that the rest of the shoulder is going to pop out as well, so I'm going to add some more light spots where the light would hit. And then as I get towards that center of the shoulder, it's going to be starting to turn around. Remember, like we had with the sphere, we had that light side that's up here. Now we've got a dark side. Same thing over here on the shoulder. This is where I would switch over from the dodge tool to the burn tool. Same thing. Use common sense. If you're working on a big area, use a big brush. If you're working on a medium area, use a medium brush. And in this case, I'm going to start dodging. Now remember, if you have trouble and for whatever reason your color is not working, there's a lot of things that could go on, but you should be someone who watched that troubleshooting video that I posted. The idea behind it is that it should be able to help you and walk you through some of the problems that you might have, especially with the burn and dodge. Remember that I'm over here, I'm burning and dodging my clothing, but when I take my mouse, and I know it's a little hard to see, and I try to burn and dodge the skin color, nothing is happening. I try to burn and dodge the mask, nothing is happening. Why? That stuff is on a different layer. So if you're working and you have multiple layers like I do, and you're suddenly like accidentally, you know, on the mask layer, but you're trying to work on the shoulders and nothing is happening, take a quick look and make sure you're on the correct layer. You can't burn and dodge the skin if you're on a different layer like the shoes, all right? It's not gonna do anything because in that particular layer, there's only a certain part that actually is colored. Everything else is sort of invisible. So make sure that as you're working on the right area. Again, now I'm going to look at his chest and I'm going to think, well, he's hunched over. My character's like leaning over. That would make a lot of what's going on in his chest sort of dark. So again, I would use my burn tool. I would make the size of my brush slightly larger so I can sort of cover a little bit more area. And again, at 0%, and you can see I'm sort of darkening the chest. At 0%, it should give you a nice blended, faded, sort of airbrushed look. And that's going to give a nice bit of punch to your character. It's going to make them look a little bit more three-dimensional. Now I've got the back of the character that's probably like catching some light from the light source, and that's where I'm going to switch back to my dodge tool. I think you can see me doing this now. And you can see it's happening relatively subtly. It's not like boom, I'm just coming in and like burning everything like a piece of burnt toast. I'm lightly adding and subtracting values to kind of make this thing stand out a little bit more. Give it a little more pop. Give it a sense that it's like a three-dimensional form that's sort of sticking out at us. You know, once I have this the way I think I want it, you can see what I've done with the shirt over here. I can continue on with other body parts. Again, thinking like what sticks out should be lighter and what catches the light. So like the edge of his thigh and especially his knee, this stuff is sticking out in the picture, should be a little bit lighter. And again, with the burning and dodging, you really don't want to overdo it. A little bit can go a long way. Then in the recesses on the back side and in around the leg, it's probably getting a little bit darker. So again, make sure you are on the correct layer when you're doing this. I think you can see what I've done with the burn and dodge tool on this example. I'm going to go to my Magic already pre-finished one where you can see some of the burning and dodging and how that's really kind of made my character look more I guess comic booky or high-end comic book. So that's what we're going to do. You're going to take the knowledge you have about the burn and dodge tool, and then you're going to go back to the assignment where you were coloring your hero, which most of you, if not all of you, have already posted. And then you're going to add some burns and dodges to it. Don't worry if you hate the way it looks. You are just saving it as a PSD, which means it's going to be a copy of your work anyway, so you should still have the original of it if you really don't like the burning and dodging. And then, as usual, you should be taking a screenshot of this and submitting it. That I'm going to give you basically pretty much the rest of the week to do. I know for some of you, you might be able to do that very, very quickly. For others, it might take a lot more effort and it might be a little slow going, and that's fine. What I'll tell you for those of you who are struggling, please use the video, pause it, rewatch it, and if necessary, simply start over and just, you know, if it's not working for you, you must have just missed one step or one detail. Just try to be a little bit more on it. For those of you who finish this in like 2 seconds and it's all good and you know what you're doing, well, then I want you to then work on coloring in your villain, adding shading and depth, coloring in your battle scene, adding shading or depth, coloring in your title, the comic book title graphic, shading that and coloring that as well. So those are going to be assignments in the future that I have not posted. But for the handful of you who really have enjoyed doing this and you're done with it quick, remember we're going to apply this look to all the other drawings that we've done. And we're going to do even a little bit more than that. We're going to actually cut these things out and post them onto different backgrounds and kind of make it look a real official. So that has been our lesson for today. It's going to be applying the burn and dodge tool to your character. Remember, spots that either hit light, like in this case, you can see the top of my head is super light because the light's coming from above. But my neck over here is a bit darker because all this, the mask, the head, everything is kind of blocking light from getting there. Same thing, this outside edge of the body is all bright while the inside edge is a bit dark. You can also then cheat it and not necessarily use a light source and just simply say parts that pop out, like his knee pops out, it should be lighter. All right, and that's what we're going to apply and do. If you have problems, please contact me in the chat. If not, happy drawing. Bye.